Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this edition of What Matters. And today I have with me Raquiya G. Austin. I said your name right, right?
You did. Hi.
Yay. So, Raquiya is a barrister and solicitor. Now, when I was at work today, I did look it up because I was like, okay, what's the difference between a lawyer, a barrister, and a solicitor? Now, here in Canada, we like to use fancy words, and we put use in all of our words, all of our spellings. So, a barrister and a solicitor is another word, is that right? Another word
It's
for
a synonym,
lawyer?
exactly. We're a lawyer. Generally speaking, in Europe, you can either choose to be a barrister or a solicitor. In Canada, we don't have the choice. You write the exam for both. So a barrister means you're mainly doing litigation work, advocacy work, you're in court. So think of civil litigation, family law, criminal law. And then a solicitor is the individual, mainly myself, I'm primarily a solicitor, where we do all the boring stuff. So you're drafting contracts, you're negotiating agreements, things like that. So real estate, corporate, as well as estates.
The
That's your
non-shiny
solicitor.
stuff that they don't show on TV.
Exactly. Not the stuff that's not on Suits.
That's not on Suits. Now, before I tell you a little bit about Raquiya, I have to say what I have to say. Raquiya, you are like my champion.
Thank
You
you.
are my black Barbie that I always wished I had when I was a little girl. Who you are and what you do and what that shows a new generation of kids growing up is tremendous. And
Thank you.
thank you for being that role model, for showing young women and men, someone who looks just like you can be fly and educated and get it done. So I thank you. I thank you so much for representing the dream of so many. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to that, I have to say, I really appreciate you allowing me and giving me a platform and an opportunity to share your platform with you, because what I think you're doing is really important. Because at the end of the day, what matters, sorry to be cliche, but what absolutely does matter is collaborating and, sharing all of the bright stars in our community that allow us to progress and move forward. So I really appreciate you for saying that.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
we start this episode with so much gratitude. Now, Raquiya is a Toronto-based entertainment lawyer. Now, that I know there's so many of you, you're out there on social media, you're doing your own thing, you have your own grind, you're entrepreneurs, you're getting things started, and Raquiya is here today to help us. Now, she's got so you have a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from York University.
Correct, yeah.
So that's the path you started
That's
on.
where I started, yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a bit more. I have one in languages and literature.
Oh, hey.
And a JD from the University of New Brunswick. What is a JD?
So that is a Juris Doctor. It used to be called a Bachelor of Laws, but it is effectively your law degree.
Okay.
Just a fancy word, like you said.
Yeah,
we like to throw around the fancy
Good
words.
words. Good words. Good words. So prior to launching her own practice, she gained valuable legal experience as a summer and articulating student at national law firm in Miller Thompson LLP.
Correct.
So you did your free work.
It was to Miller Thompson's defense. It was paid.
Okay, it was
But
paid.
yes, I was as an articling student. Typically, you are working the longest hours of your career because you really are trying to learn and develop. So it's a legal internship that law students are required after. We call it 4L because law school is 1L, 2L, 3L, and then it's the 10 months after you write the bar where you go into a law firm and you really learn how to be a lawyer. Because let's be realistic, to any of your viewers who are considering going to law school teaches you just the fundamentals and the theory. Articling and being in the law firm teaches you how to become a lawyer.
How to become a lawyer. Okay, but you did get paid.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so that wasn't that horrible internship where you eat
No.
ramen noodles and
Well, there were some ramen noodle moments. I
were
did
some.
live downtown Toronto. There were some ramen noodle moments for sure.
And one of the things I love best, because you know what? Big names, big accolades, fancy words, they don't impress me as much as the people behind them. And she is active in her community. She serves on the boards of directors for the
Yes,
Ephraim Place Center in Toronto. They provide programs, services that give children and youth skills and tools they need to build a future. And this is in the Jane Finch, Jane Shepherd neighborhoods, which is known in Toronto as a poorer neighborhood, a neighborhood with more issues. But as we spoke about before, sometimes the labels that communities are given, they really didn't earn, nor do they
nor do they deserve.
Right?
I grew up in the Jane Finch community. You know, I had a lot of support when my family lived there, and so it was a full circle moment for me to be asked to be sitting on the board of directors for that, because Ephraim's Place is wonderful. They provide services for not only for the youth but for their family as well. So there's after school programming, there's sport programming, there's a programming that helps single mothers get their GED. So they really are a full spectrum community center that works to help everybody in the community,
Right,
not
and
just
that
the youth, but everyone.
everybody, because without that complete help, it's not as effective.
It's
right?
not as effective, and you know they're helping to change the narrative that and the stigmas that are associated with the community
Yes,
through the work that
here
they
we
do.
have a product of Jane and Finch people. Okay?
Hello.
So she also works closely with pro bono organization Artist Legal Advice Services to provide free education and support to artists living in Ontario. She is also presented at Osgoode Hall Law School regarding her experience as an entrepreneur and legal practitioner. So, what we see here is not only should she educate herself, she's practicing law, but it's the giving back in the community. And to me, that is really what matters, right?
Absolutely.
That's how we change, and we have other girls from Jane and Finch come up, and you know, in a generation we have, instead of just one, you know, and I'm sure that a lot of viewers here know about being that one Black person in the
Yes.
class or in the room or in the school,
Yeah.
to a league. So again, I thank you. So tell me a bit about your journey, because you started off and you got a bachelor in English literature.
Yeah.
So when you were a little girl, what was the plan?
So when I was a little girl, I told everybody that I was going to be a lawyer. I remember my earliest memory was 6. My mother told me her earliest memory was I was 3. And I
Okay.
told her that's what I was going to do. I don't know what show I watched, what cartoon, where I saw that, but that was my divine path. I always say I got the English degree because I played to my strengths. If I could sit there and write all day, if money was not an object, I would just sit and write novels all day. Writing is my passion. But of course, we have to pay bills and eat. So law school was always the long-term goal. So I did spend some time, you know, I did the English degree. I worked for a little bit prior to getting into law school. Getting into law school wasn't easy for me. I'm very honest about my experience in that I did apply twice. I didn't get in the first time. You know, I wrote my LSAT twice as well, just to make sure I got a better score so I can have a stronger application. And so for me, when I decided to go to law school, I decided to cast my net really wide because I wanted an experience outside of Ontario and outside of Toronto.
Okay.
I was already here for so long. My family was here. I wanted to have that full university experience that I didn't get. And it's interesting that you say being one of in a class, because when I did go to the University of New Brunswick, that was a complete culture shock for me. I was the only Black person in the law school for 2 years.
In the school?
In the law school for 2 years.
Wow.
There were other, the university itself was a mixed bag of ethnicities, but in law school, I was the Black girl. There was one Black girl. And
It was you, so they knew exactly. Yeah, just go see Raquiya. It'll be her.
Yeah, it was and it was a unique experience because I came from Toronto, growing up as a little girl in Jane Finch, and then, you know, moving up to Vaughan, which was still pretty diverse for high school, and then going to York University, probably one of the most diverse universities you can go to in Toronto, and then, boom, you're not in Kansas anymore. You're in Fredericton. And I'm living an experience that I hadn't lived before, and I'm so beneficial because it made me very resilient. I had to learn to, you know, my roommates in my first year, it wasn't the most pleasant experience, but I had to learn to really navigate those questions about my identity that I never had to answer to before because I was never the only one.
So you see, she just answered my next question, which was how did that experience shape you, and what was the upside and the downside? And as you said, I've been there myself, and one of the things you build is resilience.
Absolutely.
But then also too, and this is a conversation we'll be having in February. There's a difference between willful ignorance and really truly not knowing. You know, so
Exactly.
I know the difference between when somebody's rudely like, "Oh, let me touch your hair," to your hair's really cool, and I don't quite
understand
get how it stays like that. Can I touch it? Now, the answer still may not be yes, but there's a big difference, you know, in that willful. So it definitely grew you personally.
It grew me personally. I always thank God for my first experience with roommates. I really did have the university experience. I lived with 4 males. They were all white and they were all engineering students, so very intelligent guys. But there were questions, and I was out of all the people they met, I was the first Black woman that they had ever met. All 4 of them. So you can imagine the types of conversations that we had. And it wasn't the willful ignorance as more of it was the I don't know you. I've never had to negotiate identity and speak to someone because I don't know.
That is so cool. Are you in contact with any of them?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not.
There goes the hand. That would have been interesting. If any of you are out there, please write in, call in something. I would love to hear
Please
your
don't.
side.
No.
When we come back from the break, we are going to start breaking down the things that you need to know as entrepreneurs to make sure that all of your legal I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Yeah.
We'll be back after this message.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of stay retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back to this edition with Matters, and I am here with solicitor and barrister, or does it always go barrister and solicitor?
Barrister and solicitor.
Barrister and solicitor, Raquiya G. Austin. So for the people watching in America, that is a lawyer. That's what we call our lawyers.
Or an attorney, like they
Do
like
you
to
wear
say.
one of those white frilly?
So barristers wear the tabs. We call them tabs.
The tabs?
Yeah. So we
Okay.
wear them once you get called to the bar, and I did it for formality. I purchased the whole thing, but
Really?
I'm never in court, so I don't wear it.
I should have thought of this because I would have asked for a picture.
Yes, but
I would have
barristers,
loved-
yes,
I would
they-
have
I
loved to
should've-
see that. So in Canada, you may see it also too in England. They do that too.
In England as well.
In
yes.
England
Yeah,
as well, where
they
you
also
have
use
the
barristers.
black
the robe,
robe, and then there's
you have
like
your
a
waistcoat.
frilly color thing, but they don't do the white wigs anymore, so we're good.
No, no.
So we don't do. So Raquiya is here today, and one of your or the specialty is entertainment lawyer.
So I practice in entertainment and intellectual property. So really what that means is just a fancy way to say I'm a corporate as well as an entertainment lawyer.
Okay.
So I do the business side of things, and then we're protecting and enforcing, any claims on your intellectual property assets. So
Okay.
entertainment, really, there are different silos in different industries,
Mm-hmm.
but within that, you generally need a business lawyer and then an intellectual property specialist.
Okay, so I see that you list here fashion, social media, music, and film, right? So
Yes.
that would be artists as well.
Yeah.
Create. So now, when you say intellectual property, can you explain for the audience what is intellectual property? So all of the people out there creating, please pay attention. I hope you have your pens out. You're sharing this video with other entrepreneurs that you know, because this is like free information that you could spend hundreds of dollars on. So Really, pay attention. So,
Absolutely.
what is intellectual property?
And that's a great question, especially for entrepreneurs and creatives. So, like Erica said, make sure you have your pens out. So, in the same way that we think about our homes or the money that we draw from our bank, intellectual property, where those are tangible expressions of the things we own or assets, your intellectual property is basically an intangible asset to the expression of a creative idea. So you're not protecting the idea itself, but you're protecting your expression of it. So my favorite analogy is I like heartbreak analogy.
Okay.
I've been in relationships and I've been in friendships where someone has done something to me. You know, you break up, it's very messy and you're sad. That is the general gist of the heartbreak story. However, me using my writing to express that in a story versus maybe you would use it to create a segment on your television show, whereas a client who might be a songwriter, they might write a song about it. Those individuals' expressions are protectable, right? So in Canada, you have 3 ways in which you can protect your intellectual property. The first of which is patents.
Okay.
Okay, and that's to protect an invention that is, of course, it's got to be novel, so it has to be new. It needs to be inventive. And it also has to be something that someone of ordinary skill and judgment, so someone like myself, can't create, right? So when you're thinking of patents, you're really thinking in the technology and pharmaceutical sector. So for example, if you're developing an app, right?
Right.
The next one will be copyright, which is where I live primarily with my clients who do music as well as writing. And copyright basically, again, allows you to protect that expression of the idea. So it's the expression of the artistic work or performance of that work, right? So with patents, you can register. With copyrights, however, the second the work is created, copyright basically subsists with the owner. So what that means is you don't need to register it. It is better, obviously, for you to register if you get into litigation or the potential of somebody stealing your works. But the moment you create a work, it belongs to you. Okay, so you have ownership over that. That's when we're dealing with copyrights. And then the last one is trademark. So trademark is another very useful one when it comes to branding. And this is where you have a name, a mark, a design, a phrase, or some sort of logo that goes along with your business or your branding. My favorite example, Nike. When you see that swoosh, there's a cultural cachet that's associated with that swoosh.
Right.
I can see that swoosh. I think luxury. I think athleticism. I think high-end athlete, right? So it's very important when you are starting out a business, if you do have a logo, a phrase, or a unique name, you would want to register a trademark. That allows you to protect that mark and that use of your branding. Because remember, what's very important in all of these is it comes down to your brand, right? And you don't want somebody being able to use your work and pass it off. Or you don't want somebody able to use your mark and use all of the cultural cachet and goodwill that's associated with your mark for their project that may be totally different from what you're doing. That ruins your brand and that tarnishes your brand. So particularly with intellectual property, if you are a startup, you really should be consulting a lawyer. I have had clients come to me in the past where they've attempted to do the registrations on their own, or they haven't done the registrations at all, and stuff hits the fan, and then we're having to undo that. So it's one of the primary things you really should be thinking about if you're starting up. You have to turn your mind to, what is this a brand about? This is a really cool and unique name. How do I make sure I can protect that brand? And equally too, you can monetize off of your registrations, right? If you file, you can license out copyrights, you can license out trademark usage. You can, if you have a patent, it's the same thing, right? You can basically exploit your own work for monetary value, right?
So I have some questions. So guys, you can call in. You see there's a number there. You can also, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching, does it work also too if they're watching on YouTube, Anisha? Hoffman? You can comment. So if you have questions, ask them. This is your opportunity. But in the meantime, I will be the person who will ask all the questions because we just don't know. So I have a couple of them. Now, there's patents, copyrights, and trademarks.
Correct.
Now, is a copyright just for like written word or spoken word, and a patent is for a physical thing?
So patent is for something that's inventive.
Okay,
right?
so that's inventive.
Whereas a copyright specifically is going to deal with the expression of an artistic work. Okay, artistic work or performance.
Right.
So that can be a song, that can be a novel.
It could be a beat.
It could be, exactly, it could
Okay.
be a beat if you're a producer. Whereas a patent, you're looking at maybe something that's more technologically based and grounded.
Right.
So,
Like a
for example,
machine
a
or
machine, a chemical compound, it has to be inventive. So that's the distinguishing factor. That's why you see in the patent area, that's usually you see a heavy push, especially in Canada, on pharmaceuticals. We don't have a lot of patent litigation in Canada. That's really outside of the pharmaceutical context.
Okay.
There's a lot in the U.S., of course, but 100% you're going to see your hard sciences in the patent world, whereas your artistic works you're going to be seeing in the copyright world.
Okay, another question. Actually, I have lots of questions. Another one is this is something I've heard, and I would love to know if it's true. And I'm actually asking a real lawyer. Is it true that if, say, I have an idea, and I email it to myself, does that protect me in court? Can that be used?
I've heard that. I don't know.
You've heard it too, okay.
Well, it's interesting that you said email. I've heard mail.
Yeah,
mail
mail
to
a
yourself.
sealed envelope.
Sealed
Don't open
envelope.
it.
Don't open it.
Registered mail, and then if ever in court that came up, you could bring that unopened piece of registered mail to court because it would be dated, and it would prove that you had this idea or invented this thing before the thief took it.
See, I've heard that. Where you get into the nitty gritty of laws, we have what's called common law rights. So these are basically your rights and claims to your work. So, for example, in the trademark context, even if you have been using a name or a logo for several years and have never registered the trademark, you still have a common law right to go to court to protect that. So let's say, for example, ABC123, that's your logo. You've been using ABC123 for 16 years. Someone automatically now comes along. They've got this great idea, similar concept. They're using ABC123. They decide to trademark that. So the trademark process basically allows for an objection period.
Okay.
Or if it's brought to your attention that somebody is using ABC123, you can assert your common law rights in court, basically stating that you have been exclusive, even though you haven't registered it, you have been exclusively using this.
And
so you do so you can assert those rights in court.
Okay, and that only would apply to things in similar industries, right? Because if I understand correctly, like if I sell tires and I'm Angel Tires, and you sell law services, Angel Law, that word, because it's completely different industries, it's okay, correct?
Well, this is where we now get into whether or not it's deceptively similar.
Okay.
Like
Are you trying to ride someone's coattails?
Yeah, is
ride
anybody
their rep?
going to be confused? That's
Right.
really where the issue is. Even though, yes, our services might be different, will someone searching online be potentially confused? And that might be where I would object, stating that, we might be in separate industries, but if we're searchable, there may be some sort of issue there.
Okay. My logo, how do I go about someone not being able to use my logo? When we come back from this break, so Anisha does not kill me, we will answer that question. We'll be right back.
Ho, 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 ho.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters, and I am here today with
Raquiya Austin, barrister and solicitor, lawyer.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And as I said to her at the beginning of the show, I mean, I know you did it for you, but you did it for all of us. And there's a lot of little girls that look just like you. They're like, I could do that too, right?
Absolutely.
I know that's what Lola Falana did for me. I saw her on the Muppet Show when I was a little girl. I will never forget that. And it was, honestly, she just made me believe I could do anything. I saw her dancing in that gold dress, and I was like, well, then.
Oh, I can be
me
in
too.
entertainment.
Obviously.
Do you want to know what the funny thing is? For me, it was Maxine Shaw from Living Single.
Really?
I swear I'm Maxine Shaw. I don't know how many 80s babies or remember that from the show from the 90s, but Maxine, they called her the Maverick, and I don't know why that stuck with me as a kid, but I was like, if she can do it and be a boss and be stylish, why can't I?
This is it. You know, we are being role, even when we don't realize it. Set your intentions.
Set your intentions.
Absolutely. So, we were talking about, so we got a little lesson just now in patents, copyrights, and trademarks.
Right.
So, if you didn't catch it, rewind, because you can catch this on the replay. Now, we had a question before we left. Somebody asked, how do we stop someone else from using our logo?
Okay. So that's a really interesting one. Like I said, if you're not yet, first things first, you really should be speaking to a lawyer if you're dealing with a potential infringement. It's a very general question, and it's a great question, so thank you so much for sending it in. But being that, you know, you have created a logo, I don't know how long you've been using this logo. I don't know whether or not this logo has been a registered trademark or a part of your business, but I think it's very important for you to get in front of a lawyer and talk about what your potential next steps are. Usually what generally happens when you have been given notice, about somebody using your logo, you're going to speak to a logo, and a lawyer would like to send, an unfriendly letter. I always tell my clients, allow me to be the bad guy, but yes, a cease and desist letter. Usually what happens, okay, you send the cease and desist letter, you scare them, they go away. Usually. I always tell my clients as well, don't make threats that you don't want to follow up on. So if you are going to be sending a cease and desist letter, then the next stage after that is to initiate the process of litigation, right?
Right.
So at this stage, again, and that's where, again, I don't know if you're if you've registered your trademark or you're just doing this and then you'll have to assert your common law rights. But first step first is I wouldn't suggest that you do it on your own. Definitely speak to a lawyer and have a lawyer send a letter on your behalf so that that individual knows that you mean business.
Yeah, so don't Google Docs and,
Oh, please don't show up
you
with a lawyer with a Google any contract, a Google anything.
Lawyers and doctors, I can tell you from working in the medical industry for a while, when patients would come and self-diagnose from Google, we were like, you can Google yourself back home.
I do that. I'm not going to lie.
I have this, that, this, and that, and it's like, no, you don't. But so definitely, if your trademark means something to you, if you have, like you said, you've instilled that goodwill and you've grown that reputation and you've done your customer service, and then somebody's just swiping your logo, it's worth it. Protect your intellectual property, because especially in this day and age, the things we think up are mortgage payments.
Well, and you know, the world has been around for so long, so there's nothing new under the sun. No. But if you have thought of something that is very creative and you've built a brand around that, and that brand has become lucrative and successful, and even just talking about it from the startup stage, these are discussions that you need to have. Sometimes spending the money up front, even though the resources may be scarce and limited, is better, because then on the back end, litigation is very expensive.
Yes. It's
fighting for protection is a lot more expensive than protecting yourself up front.
Beginning.
So I always say, when you are starting up, get yourself a good lawyer, get yourself a good accountant, potential advisor, mentor. Mentors are free. Manager. Even I have a business mentor, because it's important.
Absolutely. And you just said something that, it's so true. You put that time into your brand, and you put it out there, and then if it's misused or mistreated, that's all of your hard work over the years, and it can be undone quite easily. But that leads me to my other question, and I mean, I know the answer to this, by the way, but I'm going to ask her. And it's something that took me a while to kind of get my mind around. But a word that's thrown out there a lot nowadays is brand, your brand. What's your brand? What's your brand? And, back in the day when we thought of brand, like you said, it was Nike, Coca-Cola, like brand name stuff.
Brand name, yeah.
Brand name. But now you can be a brand.
Exactly.
So can you explain for the audience, what is a brand?
So the way in which I would define a brand is a brand really is holistic now at this point. It's not only just, your business, but everything else that you've associated
right.
with that business. So for example, Raquiya is a brand. Anybody who follows me on my social knows that I connect my legal as well as my lifestyle writing as well as my fashion writing, and I'm branding myself as a business and entertainment lawyer. Right? So it's very, very, very important that everything I do fits the brand. So similar to how you would think of the brand name products, you yourself can effectively be a brand. The thing with branding is you have to be consistent. Right? You can shift and, reimagine and rejig your brand, but consistency is key with branding these days, especially if you're living in the world of social media and you're attempting to be a social influencer, or you're trying to get yourself out there through television, writing, whatever the case may be. You have to make sure that the packaging of you, your entity, and everything else that you do is very consistent, because otherwise it will throw your audience off. So in the same way, brand names that we recognize have held that consistency, you as an individual now can be seen as a brand, but you also have to be consistent for people to buy into it.
Absolutely. And a great example, something that popped into my head is, for example, you won't see Nike selling flip-flops made out of paper.
Exactly.
Louis Vuittons don't ever go on special. But then, cheap things stay cheap. They don't go high-end on you all of a sudden one day. And when companies do that, what they do is they separate it entirely. So you'll have a parent company that sells cheap stuff, and then they change the packaging and sell it for a lot more, but they don't associate in order to keep their brand identity. So anybody out there that had that branding question, I know it's a question that's come up time and time again, that is one of the most important aspects of maintaining your brand is consistency.
And that's the other thing that you're going to be talking about in the startup phase, right? Your branding will change, but one of the main questions will be, what do we want this brand to look like and to start with? Start to imagine what you want, what you think is key, what you think you can maintain consistently. For example, with my blog, a year in, I went through a total rebranding. I changed my name, I changed my logo, because I got it wrong the first time, because I was being inconsistent with my brands. Instead of marrying them, I had them very separately, but it wasn't working.
We've got another question for you.
Okay, it says
the same person.
Oh, hi. My business name is registered, but my logo isn't. Again, I'm not quite sure what registration you've come under, because there are a number of them. You can either register as a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. So again, if it's from the same individual who asked the question about the logo, I would definitely, because you haven't registered, you would want to, at this stage, again, speak to a lawyer about what your common law rights would be.
Absolutely. And if you are in Toronto, all of Raquiya's contact information will be underneath, so you can contact her. We have another one. Can a trademark be made up of common symbols, or does it need to be unique symbols specific to your business or brand?
As long as it's not deceptively similar to another brand.
Like a Beavis?
Yeah, you would have to make it like you would have to make it unique in some way, but as long as it's not deceptively similar to another brand, you should be fine. And remember, once you file, it takes a number of months, right, for you to actually be approved, because you'll have to go through the actual the trademark registry to do the research to see if there are any other names or logos or anything that are similar, and then you go through the process where there could potentially be individuals who might want to combat your filing. So it's a lengthy process. So again, you do want to engage a lawyer, because sometimes coming up with the appropriate responses can be very difficult, because you are liaising with the government.
So what she said in summary for this segment is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You want to protect yourself before you have to fix it. And this goes even, my son, he's been doing videos. He's been editing and YouTube videos. And one day I walked past his room and I'm like, don't use any popular songs. He's like, why? I said, because the day you actually get big, they're coming for you. They may not bother with you now when you have no views, but the moment you do,
you'd be surprised because I reposted something recently on Instagram. There was a dance sensation going around on Instagram, and I reposted it on mine. And the audio is actually blocked in the U.S. because there's a copyright registration on the audio in the U.S. So they haven't copyrighted it in our jurisdiction, so we can hear the audio in Canada, but my friends in the U.S. can see the video of the guys dancing, but they can't hear the audio.
Yeah, so these are all things to take into consideration. So when we come back, I will tell you what we're doing because we have like about 3 shows to cram into 10 minutes. So we'll be right back after this break.
Hello, my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Welcome back. And we are in our last segment with Raquiya, but you're going to come back.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying myself. This has gone by way too quickly.
Way too fast. And that's how I know I'm doing a good job because she said it's too fast. She was like, oh my goodness, I was so bored. So we have so much to cover, like so much to cover. And Raquiya is so giving in her information. So I'd said in the description, and I don't want to be deceptive, we're going to give you your legal toolkit. So your Startup 101, right?
Startup 101.
So let's do that. We even have a slide so we can help you out. And as I said, this is replayable. This is shareable. Share it with your entrepreneur friends, the people who need this information. So Raquiya, take us to it. Starting Up 101.
So we can just move to the second slide. We've actually covered most of this information, but one of the important things I wanted to touch on very quickly were your business vehicles. Also, the types of contracts you should have in place once you're starting up. So, of course, your business vehicles, that's what's going to drive your success. So here we're talking about your sole proprietorships, your partnerships, or your incorporations. Very quickly, I think a lot of people don't really understand the corporation piece of things. It is very complicated than your sole proprietorships and your partnerships, which really you're just dealing with a single unregistered legal entity. So there's unlimited liability. Right. With a corporation, I always say you don't want to incorporate until you know you're going to be making some sort of revenue because you do have to pay taxes. Right. Why? Because you can limit your liability. The corporation is a separate legal entity. So in that, you can insulate yourself and your personal assets, but you can also have the corporation as its own, it's recognized in law as its own person.
It can be sued.
It can be sued, it can own property, it can enter into agreements. So I always like to say, sit down with whether you have business partners or yourself and just take the time to think about what business vehicle is best for you. Now, of course, depending on what you choose, you know, you might have to register something as simple as a sole proprietorship for about 60 to 80 bucks. And then you're looking at anywhere from 200 to 250 bucks to do a federal or a provincial incorporation. Right. The next thing I want people to turn their minds to when they are starting up is the types of contracts you need to have in place. Agreements mean everything because you and I could have a great business idea today, but it's very important when you're entering into business with yourself or customers or service providers, it's like a marriage, right? And sometimes marriages get ugly and they break apart and then everybody forgets what they agreed to.
I never said that.
I never said
I wasn't going to do it. It's all mine. I brought it all.
Exactly. So if you are, some key agreements you need to think about, if you are, especially in this day and age of collaboration, I meet a lot of people who are coming together. If you have a business partner or a group of people, have a founders agreement, have a partnership agreement that clearly sets out what roles and responsibilities there are, what compensation is there, and that's a difficult one. People don't like to talk about money. You need to talk about money. It's a hard conversation to have. And then also, what happens on dissolution? If I'm unhappy with you and you're unhappy with me, how can we protect ourselves to make sure that we can both get out of this unscathed? So you need to start thinking about those things. Right. Also, you need to potentially be thinking about service types of agreements. So usually what clients will bring me in to do once they've incorporated or set up the business is they'll bring me in to make template agreements. So template service agreements or template customer agreements, just so that if you're providing services or you're using a supplier, you have set out, again, the roles, responsibilities, any sort of compensation, warranties, representations, things like that.
Right.
And then lastly, you're thinking of the employees or the types of individuals you're going to be bringing on. Are they employees or are they independent contractors?
Right.
And that's a key one, right? Because your entitlements are going to be different under the Employment Standards Act or even the labor laws if you're bringing on an employee versus an independent contractor. And the key piece there is control. Right. If the employer has more control in terms of they set the hours, they provide the salary, they can dismiss, that's more of an employee relationship. Versus if you're bringing someone on, they provide their own tools, they set their own working hours, they're responsible for invoicing you out. Either party can end the relationship at either time. Well, there's more of a control on the independent contractor, so that's a different relationship. So you'll have different considerations in terms of employment standards, other employment legislation, things like WSIB as well. So very, very important to turn your mind to, the future of the business and who you're going to be engaging. And also, that's very important because it comes from the intellectual property standpoint. Any work product that an employee makes belongs to the employer.
Oh, yes.
Remember now, any work product done by, for example, in the copyright context, by an independent contractor, if you bring someone on to be a videographer and they're creating content for you, well, remember, copyright subsists with the owner. Right. So you have to make sure that you have a written assignment that provides you with that ownership and that transfers that ownership to you because you're the individual who's engaged them. So these are key considerations to think of.
I really love the word consideration that you keep using. And for those that are out there listening now, collaboration is so important. It is everything. So don't take what she said, oh, well, I need contracts, let's not collaborate, I'm going to do everything myself. You're shooting yourself in the foot. But what I love about this conversation, and when you keep saying considerations, is that, if you're an entrepreneur, you have these ideas, these great ideas. Absolutely. And then sometimes when you start to flesh them out, that's where all the doubts come in. And that's what a good business plan does, is it literally shoots holes in your idea. That's what it's designed to do. So that you have to think of alternatives and what ifs and so forth. So it actually strengthens your idea. Don't let that scare you into thinking, oh, well, there's this problem, that problem, or I have to get contracts so I shouldn't. But what that does is it really makes you up your game and go at it.
Exactly.
Realistically and really. And you won't be doing it kind of like half-assed, because...
And people will take you a lot more seriously, and I find that they'll respect you more because, like we had said earlier, if you protect yourself on the front end, you'll be so much better off in terms of business. If you spend out a little bit of money on the front end, you'll be able to recoup that and have those savings so you're not spending that out on the back end.
Right.
So it's very important. It's not to scare anyone, anything I say. It's more to ensure that you're having the conversations that you need to have and you're thinking about the things that you need to think about prior to starting a business. Because, in business, there are certain pitfalls. So you want to make sure that, you're doing your best to avoid any issues.
And I mean, it's always a learning curve, right? Every new thing you embark on, there's this learning curve. And as I was explaining to somebody the other day, the thing is, your goal is to do your very best at the time you're in. because you will launch today and tomorrow you'll find out something new. You'll watch something or read something or learn something, or something will get invented that simply did not exist before.
Right.
And so now, yes, you can do it better, but as long as you're doing it the best you can at that time. So that's what you can hold yourself accountable for.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the reason I interjected was, do not let the officialness of it scare you.
That's true,
Because
yeah.
it's real. It's real. Your idea is real. It's worthy. You know it is. So put that work in on the front end so that now you're not opening up IG or Facebook one day to find your idea, your product being done by somebody with a bigger budget or bigger backing and
Right.
or selling it way cheaper, you know, using Substar products or whatever it is. You're worth it. You are absolutely worth it. And I think for me, that's
Yeah.
what I'm taking from your message, Raquiya, is that your ideas, your endeavors, your beats and your songs and your ideas and your writings and your own personality that you're putting out there is worth protecting.
Absolutely. I didn't create this slogan in any way, but I call it the business of being creative because I want everybody to know I'm a creative too. I'm a writer. And for me, putting the work out there is all I want to do sometimes. I just want to write it and I just want everybody to read
Right.
it and it to be great. But sometimes we have to remember you have to protect yourself. And that's where a lawyer, arts, entertainment, business lawyer comes in to help you see that your idea is valuable, your idea is special, and it's good to be passionate about your idea, but you just got to remember there's a business side of being
Right.
creative.
Absolutely, and that's the thing with almost all my artistic friends. I have art, visual artists, and
Yes.
singers, and a lot of them say the same. I just want to sing. I just want to
yeah,
paint.
just wanna make
like,
art.
Stop telling me about the sale and the tax and the blah and the blah. Let me just paint. And I'm like, yeah, but what are you gonna eat? Or what are you
Can't
gonna
even
paint on if you don't sell them? And if you're not
Exactly.
selling them at, you know, their value. And then also too, if you paint it and it's beautiful and somebody else paints it and prints it,
Reproduces it. Well, what are you
what are
doing
you going
there?
to do? So to all the artistics, to all the creatives out there, you're speaking to two of them. Actually, the studio has 3 in here. You know, protect yourself. You're valuable. You're worth it. Your ideas have merit and value. And going to an entertainment lawyer is what's going to protect you and let you really be creative and put your ideas out there while protecting yourself and being able to feed yourself.
Exactly.
So, Raquiya, I can't believe it. I honestly feel like I've been talking to you for a total of 15 minutes.
I know.
It
It went
went
by so quickly.
really, really fast.
It went by so
So
quickly.
you're going to come back?
Of course.
I have her on film. You saw
Of
that, right?
course,
She
of
said, yeah,
course.
you heard her, Anisha? Okay,
Of
so
course.
she will be
I'm
back.
definitely
I'm
coming back.
actually going to tell you the date soon because I'm going to flesh it out with her. Raquiya has so much to share about so many aspects of life, and I really, especially this legal part, like she said during the break, everybody wants to talk to a lawyer for free. I mean, we
Yeah.
all want to talk to lawyers for free, doctors for free,
Doctors,
and
yeah.
mechanics.
Oh, me
Those
too.
are 3 people that if you can get their ear and just talk to them on plane, on wherever, we will. So I thank you for,
Thank you for
being
having me.
willing and coming out here and sharing such valuable information. And she's got pages of notes. So we will have her back, I'm sure, more than once. There's so much to share. Thank you for joining me again for this What Matters.
Do you mind if I share one thing before we end?
Absolutely.
I am doing, along with my business partner, our first annual clothing drive. It's called Life Turns. So I just wanted to share to the people out there. You can reach me on social at Raquiya Grace, or we're doing a drop off at Lily Beauty Supply in Brampton. That's
Okay.
164 Sandalwood Parkway North. So you can drop off items there until about January 2nd,
Okay.
and then we're going to be going out and handing everything off, and then everything that we recruit that we didn't get to hand out to the actual people in need, we're going to be donating to Dress for Success and Dress Your Best. So
Oh, that is so awesome. So I'm going to get
Thank you so much.
I'm going to get a visual or something from Raquiya so that I can post on my social media as well. If you're interested, you want to donate. Dress for Success is such an amazing
organization.
initiative. Like, it is just an amazing initiative. So I will have that information posted. Thank you for joining us yet again for another edition of What Matters. I'm staying festive, so I will see you next week, and you have a wonderful week. See you then.